thing about me is that I love lore. Hey, it's Cecil and it's Monday and I kind of wanted to try doing a new thing today of kind of talking about the lore of something that I'm really into. And right now, one of said things that I'm really into is Genshin Impact. I've been into Genshin for a little over a year and a half at this point, and I've really enjoyed the storyline behind it. Searching up the lore, learning more about the characters, it is just something that has been really fun to me. And I also love the interwoven stories that are slowly unraveled, that you slowly learn about. But unfortunately, some of the stories have some holes in them because the pieces that fit them were released in limited time events. So if you weren't playing the game during the time of that event, well, you missed out. You have to go on the wiki, you have to watch someone else's let's play of it, etc. And some of the things in there are kind of big. Like most of the information about Scaramouche, it's locked in events. Same thing with like a major drop in Albedo's character story. But these things are event locked. And so if you miss them, you miss them. Oh well. I know that I've heard that they're looking at making these events replayable, but until then, I want to take a look at two of Inazuma's historical figures who really intrigued me. And that would be Eiko Domeki and Asase Hibiki. Asase Hibiki was a shrine maiden who lived in Inazuma roughly 500 years ago. Now, I know 500 is a pretty significant number in Genshin, but surprisingly, her disappearance has nothing to do with the Cataclysm. Well, it kind of does, but not exactly. She came from Sarai Island, you know, that place that has the giant thunderbird above it and is in constant thunderstorm. Well, when she lived there, it was just a normal island. The thunderbird was locked away and everything was totally fine. Before the cataclysm, she had traveled to the Grand Narukami Shrine to kind of learn how to be a better shrine maiden, and she was sort of an apprentice under the Kitsune Saigu, who we have learned a little bit about. She seems to have been the familiar to the previous Electro Archon, Raiden Makoto. While she was there, she also fell in love with a martial artist named Takamine. However, both Kitsune Saigu and Takamine passed away during the Cataclysm, and she moved back to Sarai Island. Her story is found in the Shimenawa's Reminiscence, I believe. And then there's Eiko Domeki. Eiko was a pirate who lived 500 years ago, and he is best known for the rebellion that he started against the shogunate. While it's not 100% confirmed, it is highly alluded to that he was an Oni, based on the information that we have from the Golden Apple Archipelago, as well as, I believe, the description of the ketch, which is the pole arm that you can get from the Fishing Association in Inazuma. Less of his story is known in the game than Hibiki's. However, we do know that it was during his rebellion that the constant thunderstorm was unleashed upon Sarai Island. When Hibiki moved back home after the cataclysm, she was once again tending to the Asase shrine. And during this time, Domeki, who also lived on the island, began visiting, where they became fast friends. She would tell stories, and Domeki would say she was acting like an old auntie, but he always stayed and listened. We also know that he had asked her personally to name a couple of the ships in his fleet, including Saramaru and Kosekamaru. All in all, it kind of sounds like a chosen family storyline after she had lost everyone. When you get to the Sarai Islands, you meet this cat, this talking cat, who is probably some kind of yokai. Her name is Neko, and she is the self proclaimed high priestess of the Asase Shrine. She was very close with Hibiki and doesn't really have a concept of time. So during the time that we are working with Neko, we're taking her quests and whatnot. She's talking about the Shrine Maiden, how she's waiting for Hibiki to come back. And slowly but surely, it becomes more apparent to the player that what Neko is talking about happened a long time ago. By the end of the Narukami Trail quest that we do with Neko, it becomes very apparent that it's been 500 years since Asase Hibiki was alive, and regardless of what happened to her, she was a regular human. She's definitely dead. But how did she die? Why didn't Neko know she was never coming back? After the events of the Cataclysm, the shogunate, now under Raiden A, started cleaning up some of the pirate groups around Inazuma. One of the biggest hubs for pirate groups was Sarai Island, and Domeki had one of the biggest pirate fleets of the entire country, from what we can tell. So, of course, the shogunate was planning to take down Domeki's fleet, which obviously he didn't want, because who wants to be taken down, taken in, arrested? He and his crew fought back. Even though he tried to convince Hibiki to stay at the shrine, to stay out of it, because she was a shrine maiden, she wasn't a pirate, the shogunate wasn't after her. They had a bond. They were chosen family, and he was really the only person she had left in this world after the Kitsune Saigu and Takumin both lost their lives during the Cataclysm. So, desperate times call for desperate measures, and in an attempt to help Domeki, she does a ritual to release the Thunderbird intentionally. I don't know if it was hubris or desperation, but either way, she was hoping that maybe she could control the storm just enough to drive the shogunate away. Technically, the storm does what it's supposed to do. It does drive the shogunate away. But you can't really control a storm, not even when that storm is a Thunderbird spirit. It wreaks havoc on Sarai Island as a whole, and we see that when we come to the Desolate Island in the quest. Domeki's fleet is completely torn apart by the storm. They barely make it out, and they grab the samurai puppet on their way out, which is how we first run into Magukenki, the first round of the Golden Apple Archipelago. Their flagship, Suraimaru, lays completely wrecked on the west side of the island, and another one of their ships, Kosekamaru, gets blown out into the Sea of Fog. It barely holds it together until it ends up washed up on the Golden Apple Archipelago. There is a group of shipwrecked people whose ancestors had built up this civilization, and they were making do, and they were living, and they were kind of contained to these five-ish islands by the Sea of Fog. So when the pirates crash land on the island, it is only with the help of the people already living there that they're able to survive. Their ship is completely wrecked and scattered among the Five Isles. And we don't know exactly how long the people already living there were there, but it was for at most 2,000 years and at least a few generations, based on the context from the echoing conch shells that we find in the first round of the Golden Apple Archipelago quests. The fact they've been stuck there for so long isn't exactly promising info for Domeki and his pirate crew, so they start desperately searching for a way to get back home. This is almost the end of the story, but it's actually the first piece that we got, because again, a lot of this information comes from the first round of the Golden Apple Archipelago. Pirates were not ready to give up just because the Sea of Fog was nearly impossible to navigate. Nothing is really impossible, right? If they got there, then surely there's a way to get back out. With the help of some of the young people on the islands, they continue exploring and looking for some sign of a way out. And finally, after a lot of hard work, as is demonstrated from both the echoing conches and the murals drawn around the island, they found it. Traversing the Sea of Fog is complicated. It relies on a lot of timing and a lot of funky navigation through the sea. If you played the Golden Apple Archipelago event, then you know exactly what I mean. Even though it's easy to get lost, they figured out the time of day, they figured out the path, and they were able to make it out. Both the pirates and the people who had been stranded there for an unknown amount of generations. It almost sounds like a happy ending. Almost. When Domeki returns to Sarai Island, obviously the first thing that he does is look for Hibiki, but she's nowhere to be found. Given the storm still wreaking havoc, the shogunate's army that had been there it was pretty clear to him that he had lost her. When he comes to the realization that Hibiki is gone, he decides to vow to carry on her dream of traveling the world, and he returns to setting sail. It's obvious to Domeki as a person what happened to Hibiki, but Neko is a cat. She's got no idea. While she's intelligent for a cat, she really does seem to believe, or at least desperately hope, that Hibiki is coming back to her. And she doesn't seem to have that concept of time. But even still, if it had been 5 years instead of 500, Hibiki is never coming back. It's kind of a bittersweet ending. Hibiki died protecting somebody that she loved, and ultimately, while it did wreak some havoc and it did cause a gigantic storm, it did succeed. She was able to protect Domeki from the shogunate forces. I'm not sure if she died peacefully knowing that, but at the same time, she had lived through so much tragedy in her life. She got to go out her way. I think to get into a bit of character analysis here, I imagine that during the cataclysm, she felt powerless. There was nothing she could do to help her mentor or her love. But in this moment, for her chosen family, for someone who she, had a friendship with, there was something she could do, and she did all she could, and it worked. So it's not really a happy ending, but there's some level of peace, there's some level of closure. Anyways, I'm sorry if I'm the only one who is deeply interested in the story of Hibiki and Domeki, but I was absolutely my interest was completely piqued when I started learning about them from the Neko as a cat. And once we got through the Narukami Trail, I had to know more. I had to figure out exactly what had happened to Hibiki, and finding out what happened to Hibiki meant finding out what happened to Domeki, and then we had the second round of the Golden Apple Archipelago, and even more information came, and I was like, okay, I need to learn all of the things. Thank you very much. In any case, thank you for listening to me talk about these things, and I hope that you were interested. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if there is any other sort of Genshin lore that you would like for me to talk about, you can suggest that in the comments. I'll take a look at it. I'll think about it. You can follow me in the links in the description box below, including my Twitch, which we are within like 4 followers of affiliate at this moment that I am recording. So if you would like to hop over, be a bro, share this video with another bro, and if you have not done so yet, subscribe, because we seem to be on a bit of a video making roll right now.